Welcome to the Startempire Wire Founders Podcast, where we make entrepreneurial founders a top priority. Each episode features risk takers, business builders, community shapers, institutional and government supporters in our local startup ecosystem. Tune in weekly to hear all about what's happening with the movers and the shakers of Southern California's Inland Empire and beyond. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Founders Podcast. Today, I'm here with Chad Wasilenkoff, who is the founder and CEO, and also a serial entrepreneur of Helicoid Industries. We're going to talk a little bit about Helicoid Industries, but first, I want Chad to tell us about who he is. Chad, who are you as a person? Where did you grow up? And all of that great stuff.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me on the podcast. So as mentioned, Chad Wasilenkoff. I was actually born and raised up in Calgary, Canada, and started on the entrepreneurial journey as a very young child. I was sort of middle income. We lived near a golf course, not wealthy enough to be on the golf course, but I started jumping the fence and going to the ponds, collecting golf balls and selling them back to golfers. And I had lots of other kids working for me, pay them in chocolate bars. And then anything I was interested in, I started buying and selling out of the papers. So BMX bikes, skateboards. Nice. That grew up into diamonds, artwork, jewelry. Then I started buying and selling cars. I was 13, 14 years old, long before I had a driver's license. And I'd amassed hundreds of thousands of dollars and then started investing in companies. Started small, obviously with publicly traded companies to buy a small percentage. And then with success, it just made sense to buy the whole company. So I've bought, built, and grown over 30 companies. I've taken more than a dozen companies public. Raised over $1 billion for those companies.
Awesome.
All kinds of industries all over the world. So as an example, I had the Swiss banknote mill, so I made all the Swiss banknotes, the Euro banknotes for about a dozen countries. I had a 60% global share in wallpaper for this non-woven wallpaper. I had a mill in Germany. I've had a couple of gold mines, copper mines, a diamond mine, uranium mine, composites, tequila, software, and now I'm down to this Helicoid, this composite company, and a medical device company.
That's fascinating, man. So you really have a lot of experience all over the place, and you're just not new to the game. So, I mean, before we get into in depth on what your startup does, why Helicoid?
Yeah, so I was actually volunteering at University of San Diego and University of Riverside, mentoring some of the professors, guest speaking at their business and entrepreneurial classes. And I was out with some of the guys one night, and I think it was actually at a judging competition, and said, what are you guys seeing that's interesting out there? We do hundreds of millions of dollars of collective research in all these universities, in-house patent lawyers. What's the most interesting, disruptive, ready to commercialize technology? And they all said it was this Helicoid. So I did some research, got excited, hired some industry experts, and they too said it was absolutely game-changing.
Wow.
It took about a year to put everything together, license the technology, and that was the foundation of our startup.
That's cool. And your patent lasts until when?
The base patent until 2032, and then we've since filed 4 additional patents.
4 additional patents. So you got 5 in total that are going to go through?
Yes.
That's really awesome. So you have a very defensible business with patents. So you're ready to blow up. Now tell us a little bit about the needs that Helicoid meets. Let's just get into the technology. It's really fascinating. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the technology or the impetus actually comes from a biomimicry story where some researchers found this mantis shrimp. It's off the coast of Vietnam, and they were trying to figure out how this thing could be so strong and so tough. So it has these appendages or clubs. They're actually faster than a .22 caliber bullet. They boil the water. They move so fast when they smash their prey, and they do it tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times without breaking their claws. Wow. So the researchers took it apart, and they actually thought it might be some special material. But what they found, it was the internal architecture. So people are familiar with things like honeycombs and things like that, where you use less material, put it together in a different fashion, and it becomes stronger. And so what this Helicoid is, and it came, as I said, from this mantis shrimp, is they take unidirectional fibers. They're all going in one direction. If you imagine your fingers going out. The next layer would be a small angular rotation. Doesn't matter left or right. And then you just keep going in that same direction. And the shape you create is called a helicoid. And what that does, you can imagine if 2 fibers are at 90 degrees, which thinking if you're in a high-end luxury car and they've got carbon fiber and things like that, it's usually that woven pattern. We've
Yeah.
got 2 fibers at 90 degrees. There's a small little square section there where energy can be transferred before the fibers will break. With a helicoid, it's a much shallower angle, so when energy hits it, you can disperse it over a much wider area before you have catastrophic failure.
Wow.
These researchers spent $12 million, 14 years, collaborated with about a dozen universities around the world to improve and perfect and research it. They actually found over 50 other organisms on the planet that are known to have really crazy, strong, impact-resistant characteristics, and they too have evolved with this helicoid. So put in place, and now if anybody wants to make a composite, whether it's carbon fiber, fiberglass, things like that, they have to use our patents and our technology. And so that's what we're working with. We've got over 40 different companies, global leaders in their industries, now doing testing, prototyping, and trials to implement the helicoid for their different products.
That's pretty amazing. So it's super efficient bioengineering
Exactly.
done by intelligent design, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. When I found the technology, to be honest, it sounded too good to be true. So I hired a gentleman. He had just retired from 35 years at Boeing, all in composites, had been a professor at the University of Washington in Oregon, teaching composite manufacturing. So I flew him down. He looked at this and said, when I was at Boeing, I was in charge of $20 to $30 million projects just to take 2 or 3 pounds out of the plane, fuel efficient. This sequence can take tens of thousands of pounds out of the plane. So with that, we now have about a half a dozen aerospace companies that are working through various pieces and components and prototyping and testing. It does take a long time, especially in the aerospace. They're not going to change the balance of a plane. So once they test and perfect and hopefully agree they want to use it, then it'll go on a new plane when it's completely built from the ground up and designed from the ground up. So if you change the weight and the balance, obviously it'll mess everything up. But their testing is going well. They're excited. It's not some new material where they have to worry about conductivity or thermal dynamics. It's the exact same composite they're using, the same equipment, the same everything. They're just telling the robotic arm where it lays it up right now with 0, 45 left, 45 right, 90 degrees.
Yeah.
It's the best structure in the world. That's why it's on cryogenic tanks that go into space and things like that.
I was about to ask you, because you know what came to mind? Starship.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot of people are not familiar with it, but I remember following Elon, and he was building Starship, and the cryogenic tanks are these big tanks that they had. Is the helicoid used there? I mean, because there were several catastrophic failures, and they finally got some things to work. I'm not certain how they did because I didn't follow it close enough. What about that?
We're not in those specific tanks yet, but we've got, I think, it's either 3 or 4 global leading companies that do pressure vessels.
Yeah.
And one that does cryogenic tanks for space.
Okay.
We're all working on and prototyping and testing the helicoid, and we're getting very good, promising results. So one of our additional patents is specifically for those types of tanks and laying up the architecture in a helicoid.
Wow. So one day you guys may be working with Elon Musk.
Yep. And again, we're working with about a half a dozen electric vehicle companies. I can't say which ones.
Okay.
They're all looking to improve. They're always looking to reduce the weight, because then your batteries and things like that will obviously last longer and you get better mileage and things like that. But they're also looking to protect the batteries. There's obviously been some catastrophic events, and you get these rocks, or they hit a curb, or they go over something, and so they're looking to improve the protection of those batteries. Or in the event something went wrong with the batteries, or they exploded, you want the protection as well to contain that. So that's exactly what our technology does. With the same amount of material, we make it stronger, more impact resistant.
Wow.
Or they can use less material, reduce the weight, and still achieve the current same safety standards.
That's pretty cool. So this can be applied to any material, and more often than not, which materials do you see it being used with?
Yeah, so as I said, it works with any composites. When I built the company, I actually had in the business plan and the model, I planned to get into manufacturing. I've had lots of different factories with thousands of employees all over the world, and it just made sense. Obviously, we're going to make composite products, lighter, stronger, and better. But once I started hiring industry-specific talent, and they came to me and said, this is going to be disruptive to tens of thousands of products. Well, we don't want to build a hockey stick company, and then we have to try to compete with the incumbents, and then a tennis racket company, and then a helmet company, and multiple helmet companies, one for football, one for golf, or downhill racing, things like that. We just figured now we're just going to license our technology. So that's the direction we're going. So I would say about half of our companies are using carbon fiber, approximately half are using fiberglass.
Okay.
And now we've perfected and are significantly improving flax. Nobody's using it yet, and because the fibers are not very strong, but if you take a flax fiber, which is grown, so it's more agricultural based, it's way more environmentally friendly than fiberglass, it's recyclable.
Right.
So you've got things like wind turbine blades and electric vehicles that are using this non-recyclable product, being fiberglass, carbon fibers. Now they would love to use flax, but it doesn't have the strength. But as I said, a flax in a helicoid architecture is about 90% the strength of a fiberglass now. So
wow.
Companies are showing interest in moving that direction.
Man, that's really fascinating. The Inland Empire startup ecosystem industry is tremendously fragmented. A few top-tier hubs, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, are well covered by media, events, and data platforms. Finding reliable information relevant to startups or the tech industry in the Inland Empire is extremely difficult. As a result, startups can't scale fast enough. Investors are having a hard time finding the right deals, and corporates can't find the right companies to partner with for their innovation activities. Startempire Wire, the leading Inland Empire startup publication, is providing the Inland Empire startup ecosystem with the most accurate, engaging business and financial data, events, and news. Our reach of entrepreneurs, C-level executives, angels, VC investors, startup employees, key management at innovative corporates, and big tech is the solution for your B2B or B2C needs. As we build out our platform, we're looking for partners. This is your opportunity to get in on the ground level. If you're looking to align yourself with the local and growing startup and tech ecosystem of the Inland Empire, we have created the platform to get your name noticed and the opportunity for you to grow the recognition of your brand. Contact us today for availability and pricing options. We look forward to our partnership with you. Are there any others in your region or like anybody else doing what you're doing with Helicoid?
Yeah, so our competition is not in the architecture, because if it's a helicoid, then you're infringing on our patent. So we're the only ones that have that. But where we have competition would be the people will look to use different types of fibers, so shifting materials. They'll use layers or veils in between that are tried to do certain improvements and characteristics, but it increases the cost. Nanoparticles, so different coatings, things like that. So everyone's always looking to try to make composites lighter, stronger, or impact resistant. But those things usually increase the cost and increase the weight, whereas we're experiencing, almost a 50% weight reduction, which also means a 50% raw material consumption. Plus, if you have to heat it in a kiln, it's less energy to heat and cure half the material. So we're all able to offer a lighter, stronger, better product and a cost savings at the same time, using all existing manufacturing equipment.
That's very cool. So you guys are connected to UCR in some way? How is that?
Yeah, so it was actually the University of Riverside was where the technology was first developed in the labs there and then patented. So the UCR and Riverside are part of the regions. So the patent is owned by the regions.
Okay.
And we've licensed it from them. That lab has since moved to University of Irvine, and we still do work with it. We're working on a specialized wind turbine blade right now, implementing helicoid for the first time.
That's cool. How about the growth of the company? Like, you gave us a little bit of the story so far, but like, where are you at today? Again, could you just repeat that for our audience?
Sure.
Yeah.
So founded the company in 2019 and then started building out the team, industry specific all over the world. And we were ready to launch sort of our coming out party. So we hadn't talked to anybody. We were going to do it at the world's largest composite conference, where there's about 45,000 people in attendance. And it was in March of 2020. 1 week before we were getting on the plane, COVID hit, and all things shut down. So now I've got a whole bunch of staff. Now we lose that opportunity, the big breakout coming out party. But right after that, we start calling people, and unfortunately, our labs are closed. We can't get in and do any testing or prototyping.
Oh
We
man.
wait another 6, 8, 9 months. Then they start saying, well, we don't even know if we're going to have a company ourselves. Our sales are down. We're laying people off. When we
Wow.
get back into the labs, we have to some legacy projects that are now way behind schedule.
Yeah.
It's a tough, difficult time, and unfortunate to be building a startup that requires this kind of hands-on. We don't just make a product and sell it. We have to convince them to first try it, then they do their own testing. Each product is different and has its own specific, unique characteristics or performance. And so again, it was a really tough time. So we've come out of that now. As I said, we've got about 40 different customers we're working with, about a half dozen in aerospace, about half dozen electric vehicles, some pressure vessels, maybe another half dozen to a dozen in sporting goods. We've got 4 different helmet companies,
Yes.
things like that, some defense workings and some military applications, because they like things that are lighter, stronger, and generally more impact system.
Right.
So we've got great diversification, but it's a long sales cycle. They do almost all of them do a lot of testing and trials. For our hockey stick, as an example, that was our first contract. It took 2.5 years almost.
Wow.
After 2 rounds of prototyping, then 2 rounds of player testing, and more prototyping, then more player testing. But it's all been approved, the contract signed, and we expect they're going to launch in their highest end stick next year, which they sell a lot of sticks into the NHL. So we expect a significant portion of NHL hockey players next year having our Helicoid in their hockey sticks, and hopefully even our brand on the stick.
That's cool.
But we'll see where we go. And we're working with 2 of the global leading tennis racket companies and things like that. So in terms of revenue, we're still a startup, so we're still not to break even, but we're close. We expect 1 more contract that should get us to break even, which we hope to have by the end of this year or early next year. And then after that, that's with 2 or 3 contracts, we'll be break even and generating a profit. And then we have 30 to, again, by that time, hopefully we'll have others even on board. So, 40 additional customers that we're working with. The holy grail for us is the aerospace. But again, that's at least 5 years, if not 10 years out to the $1 of revenue. But they represent about 50% of the global composite industry, which is over $100 billion. So that's, again, our holy grail, where we're going to have the biggest impact. And they're super sensitive to weight reduction.
Yes.
And of fuel. They're super sensitive, obviously, to safety and impact resistance, things like that. They overbuilt structures for that. So they're really excited about our technology. And again, so we're looking forward to the next decade. But it is a long, slow road, but that's okay. If it was easy, everybody would.
Right. So one of the major growing pains was the lockdowns.
Yeah.
What would be another growing pain that you would say you've experienced while moving the startup forward, getting the traction that you're currently moving for?
Yeah, one of the challenges was raising the capital, and that was due to the business model. When it made logical sense to shift to this licensing model.
Yes.
But now we don't make anything. So we're actually, because of COVID also helped facilitate this, we have a head office here in Southern California, but I'm the only one here. All of us are with our automobile guys in Detroit, some of our sports guys over in Europe, our wind turbine guys are in France, things like that. So representation. So we have a virtual office. So we have no manufacturing facilities, yet we sell a technology. And so it is a challenge for investors to wrap their head around that. So when we launched the company, the business plan always said that we needed $5 million. We raised $3.6 million of that to date. Again, we're still fundraising, so look for another $1 million to $1.5 million, and that'll close us off. You don't necessarily need all of it to get through to profitability, but you just never know. Things always take longer, and we're dealing with these multi-billion dollar companies. Some of them, many of them that we're dealing with have 50 to 75,000 employees, a global footprint, and make lots of different composite products, but we got to get it in the door, get them to launch on the first, and then it'll start to roll out. So the upside's great, and hopefully once we prove all this out, we don't need a lot of burn rate, because again, we're not manufacturing anything. Once we get a contract, they just send us royalty checks. So it's great business in the long run, but again, investors have some skepticism at times because we don't make any.
Right, up front. Okay. And are you guys are still looking for more investors at this point?
Yes.
To get you to your fundraising goal, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Another $1.5 million. I've got a couple of investors that are going through due diligence now.
Okay.
So I'm confident we'll get that closed off in the next 2 to 3 months. But if anybody listening to the podcast is interested, happy to discuss that as well.
Yes, please connect with Chad. If you are an investor and you are looking to invest in revolutionary technology that he has. So tell us about your short-term goals. Within the next 2 months, any 2 short-term goals you're trying to knock out.
Yeah, one is to finalize our next contract. We expect it to be in the electric vehicle space as a battery enclosure.
Okay.
As I mentioned before, it's a hot button for everybody. They're mostly using aluminum, and they would like to go to composite. There's a big industry shift, and it'll be a lot of real estate. But of course, if they do that, why not add in the helicoid so you can make it lighter, stronger, and less of that composite material and safer? So we're the global leader. It's a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company. We've already gone through all the testing with significant result improvements across the board. Typically everything we found and everything we tested, we never get a result of 1, 2, 3, 4% improvement. It's usually 20, 30, 40% in multiple parameters. We can increase load bearing by 70 to 80%, and increase the impact resistance by over 50%.
Wow.
Again, that's on the product and what nature they're looking at. But we expect to close on that contract. Then they want to roll it out. They already have a contract themselves in place that could generate $5 to $10 million of profit for us. Because again, we have no cost of materials.
Okay.
That's the kind of profit it could generate over the next 2 to 3 years just from that one contract.
Wow. Yeah, I know when carbon fiber was first being pushed into the market, it was such a revolution. Now imagine carbon fiber plus the helicoid technology, how much efficiency you get from that. That's amazing.
No, exactly. That's one of the things that got me excited when I looked at the business spectrum is, if you want something cheap, like a car bumper, you're just looking for a cheap one, you just get it made of plastic. But if you've already made the decision, we want it lighter, stronger, more impact resistant, we're going to go to either fiberglass or all the way up to carbon fiber. It's going to cost quite a bit more, but clearly that company or that product justify or commands the performance improvements and the weight reduction to spend that. And so now we get to go in without changing any of the manufacturing equipment or retesting for different material. We just make it lighter, stronger, and more cost effective. So we're getting very good traction in terms of getting the engagement.
Yes.
At least now that we're past the major issues of COVID.
Right.
Now that we're getting this traction, now it's just a matter of going through that process. But automobiles is usually considered a 2 to 3 year sales cycle.
Okay.
You meet them and implement or introduce them to a new technology till the time you get the contract. So it's a long haul, but we're making good progress.
Yes, nice. So your 2 short-term goals. Okay, so you mentioned the one was to repeat those again.
The first one was to get a contract signed for our electric vehicle battery enclosure with one company.
Okay.
We're working with several others. It's considered the biggest real estate grab in the composite space right now. Is this shift of electric vehicle protective boxes and skids, where our technology is ideally suited. It's expected to be a very, very meaningful volume of composites in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
One of those exciting places, and we're right on the cutting edge. We've already done the testing and trials with the results.
Yes.
The second thing I'm working on, or the second priority, is just introducing ourselves to new markets, as always. So
new markets.
Playing catch up. We have a small team of about 7 people and 40 projects that are live.
Yes.
Some of those are now getting to the point where they need less hand holding, and the customers are taking on more of the work.
Okay.
Now get back out there and start making some new introductions and things like that. So I'm looking to engage actually San Diego University and some of the students down there to take on a project to help identify some of the customers. We know where our technology could be used best, but let's then go through the more detailed analysis and find who has the largest market share. I mentioned hockey sticks. We already in that space, but if that was the example, then they would define who's selling the most sticks and which ones are the best, which company has a problem with impact resistance or hockey sticks breaking, because they're all eager adopters. So basically they'll help us to high grade and prioritize our targets. Again, we are a small company, but we want to get out there and sell again, but we're looking for those companies that'll have the best fit and the earlier adopters, the more aggressive adopters of our technology. Time is the one killer that for any startup, obviously. Raise money and you're burning money until that day you hit that break even. It's always a so anxious to get there.
Right. So in 3 years, what would you say you could see Helicoid Industries? 3 years, 5 years and 10 years are the long-term goals?
Yeah, I would say within 3 years, we probably are in all those major industries I said. So multiple sporting goods, multiple different automobiles and automobile applications, pressure vessels, things like that. A few defense contracts, and we'll hopefully at that point, with several of those contracts, we'll have these inroads with these multinational conglomerates.
Yeah.
And I would say in the 5 to 10 year range, I have a feeling we'll just probably get acquired.
Get acquired. Okay.
They're multi-billion dollar composite only companies. They'll want to try to secure this technology because they're not going to like the size of checks they're going to have to write us if they want to really roll it out through their entire product line. And at the same time, they get access or acquire us, then they can keep it from their competitors and give themselves an advantage. So, that's probably the direction we're going. If not, I would probably look to take it public. Might be in 3 to 5 years, and then it'd be a lot of upside still as a go public entity because of the aerospace. As I said,
aerospace industry is big.
Yeah, and again, it's $50 billion now just on aerospace. Expected to, as I said, continue growing. Will have a meaningful impact for them and their fuel consumption and fuel savings. So it's not the piece or part, but as an example, an engine containment ring, just on the weight savings for that ring, it's about we'll save them about $30,000 of raw material.
Wow.
That part. We'll save them $5 million in fuel efficiency over the lifetime of that plane, just on a part that's going to be $30,000-$40,000 part, save them $5 million. So the impacts are there. We're
huge.
A lot of success, but again, they're very risk averse, which is great because we all feel great and comfortable getting on planes because they do it right and they're very risk averse. A lot of testing, but that's our big blue sky. But I don't know if me or my existing shareholders will still be around as shareholders or whether it gets taken out before then. But if not, that's fine too. I've had lots of companies that I've been owning and running, had them for 10, 12, 13 years. I don't have a specific timeline or horizon. I tried retiring a few times and it doesn't take it. I like to do it. So looking to keep this one growing as long as I can until somebody makes an offer that we can't refuse.
Yeah, no, that's a great plan because you want to get the most out of what you put into it, and you want to get the best return. I guess that's smart business, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are located in Indio, California, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. We wrote an article about you guys, and you just received an award of some type. Yeah,
so we were asked to speak and participate at NREL. So it's their annual conference. It had been virtual for a little while, but it was their first back live in-person conference.
Yes.
About 50 different companies were invited to present, and we actually ended up winning.
That's cool.
Most advanced or early growth stage opportunity or company. And so it's meant for climate tech. So all the other companies had some sort of aspect where they, helping the environment or
right.
That. But it was, I was surprised. I'd never been involved in it because I'd never had a composite company before. But when I was talking, a lot of people came up and said, how many years have you been applying? Because we've been applying for 4 years or 6 years.
What?
They asked us. And,
wow.
And to win it, it was just icing on the cake. But there was a lot of investors there as well.
It seemed like a big gathering of who's who, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there was lots of multi-billion, it was sort of venture arms for Schlumberger and oil and gas companies and other energy companies and things like that. They were sending very senior people. Several other investors that have these SPACs, multi-billion-dollar SPACs.
Wow.
Looking for new technology. Fortunately, with a lot of them, though, they're looking to write bigger checks, bigger deals, and we're just don't require that much capital. So that was one of the challenging things, to find the right fit with the right investor that is only looking to put $1 million to work and no expect any money after that.
Yeah, because investors they want to drop the big check, so maybe they can get equity on there or what.
Yep. A lot of these guys like to write $20, $30, $40 million checks, and we don't have that need for that kind of capital. So
and are you, even if you had that need, would you be looking to give away equity?
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to give away, not happy, but we are giving away equity, or it's an equity round that I'm doing right now. And it's the same valuation, the same $5 million. I put another $600,000 in myself in December of last year.
Okay.
Management's also helping fund the operation.
Yeah.
Key people, our chief technology officer, who's that Boeing individual. So that person I had due diligence asked if he could join the company. I said, absolutely. So he's now part-time because he wanted to retire and had just retired from Boeing, but he's taking all his compensation in shares. My CFO is 35 years in corporate finance at Citibank.
Yeah.
Compliance, risk compliance officer at Citibank, very well known and established. He, as well as our CFO, he's taking all his compensation since day one in shares.
Wow.
They all believe in this company and see where it's going. So
Wow.
we are offering equity at the same valuation as the original round. So
That's great. No, this is great. When we saw the award and we decided we're going to write about this. This is the first time we ever heard of you, but I thought the technology was cool. So I'm like, we got to get him on the podcast at least, So thank you for coming on the podcast, Chad.
No, it's a pleasure. Glad to be here.
So where can people find you and information about your startup if they want to dig in, do some due diligence if they're an investor, any person who maybe they want to, express some type of interest or even do business with you, where do they find you?
Yeah, so you can get to us through our website at Helicoid IND, short for industries. So helicoidind.com. And from that, we can get you a non-confidential, so no NDA required, but a non-confidential investor presentation. Obviously, there's a lot of information on our website. And if you want, you sign a non-disclosure agreement, we can go deeper and put you into the data room. So I run all my companies as if they're $1 billion publicly traded company, which a unicorn, I have had one unicorn. I've done one company to the public to $1 billion. So again, I just want to make sure we always are organized, have everything in place, because you never know when some large company like a Boeing or something is going to knock on the door and say, we want to buy you. So if we're organized and ready, obviously it helps that valuation for all shareholders. So, but as you said, also, we're open to do business in the composite world. So if any of your listeners or have friends or family or companies that you're working for that are looking to make things lighter, stronger, more impact resistant, please give us a call. Happy to continue the dialogue.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first here on the Founders Podcast. Get in touch with Chad if you are following in any of those groups, or if you just have more questions for him. His website, get in touch, with him on his website. I'm sure he's have some response for you soon. Do you personally respond to messages, Chad?
Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely. I'm usually up at about 3 a.m. and always my inbox is my to-do list. So
okay.
It never gets to zero, but I absolutely respond if you email me.
Awesome. So get in contact with him. We want to thank you for coming on the Founders Podcast again, Chad. And ladies and gentlemen, be sure you click the like button on this video and subscribe to this channel, because we're bringing you all of the best startups, events, and people here in the Inland Empire. Thanks again for tuning in. See you next time. Peace.